Y'all, this is Our Take. This is Mark, the moderator.
Thanks.com. The game is the game always.
Leaf is only family. Brooklyn forever.
1414 Burger.
All right, so since y'all brought up Brooklyn, we know what done happened. We got to talk about it. And I got a lot of mixed feelings about it, but let me just ask a question right now. Where y'all at with Harden joining the Brooklyn Nets, man? Let's talk about it. What's your take?
No surprise. I thought it was going to happen early in the season when they first mentioned it. I did think that other teams had a shot like Philly or Miami, but I'm not surprised that he ended up in New Jersey. With Brooklyn. I definitely think it will work, but I'm still waiting to see the playoff James Harden. Now I think it will be easier for him because he won't be double teamed and triple teamed. You feel what I'm saying? Come this playoffs, and he's gonna have an easier time on the court. He doesn't have to have the ball as much as he usually does. What happened, Mark? See?
Time out, man.
Avery.
Time out, man. No time when you talked about Harden have you mentioned double teams or triple teams in the playoffs against him.
Mark. I've never said Harden has the ball in his hand too much. Hold on, wait. Matter of fact,
That's not what I mentioned. That's not what I brought up. I said you never mentioned about Harden being doubled and triple teams in the playoffs to play towards why he has collapses in the playoffs. Now we're hearing this for the first time from you. I just think it's a new take.
But that's not what he said, though, Mark. That's not what he said.
But I knew where this was going. That's why I started with that, because I knew what he wanted to do, right?
Mark,
that's exactly what he said.
Remix.
Never fails, bro. To our loyal fans, y'all already know what Markism is. This is what we call it, Markism, right? But anyway, I do think it will work. I do think it will work with all three of them on the court. I do think I want to see what they do with those three roster spots that they have open. But for them, you have to get to the finals, or your season is an absolute bust.
They get to the final. Go ahead, Banks. Go ahead.
I think in terms of talent, man, they definitely got enough talent to get out of the East. Again, this is one of those moves that can go horribly wrong or can go incredibly well. The first couple games I've seen, it doesn't look like they are playing a whole lot of defense. So we'll see what goes on with that. And we got to see what happens when Kyrie comes back in, and if he buys in. It's really going to have to be everybody's going to have to buy into what it is that they're doing in order for them to be successful. I wanted to touch on a different side of it, though. I've heard Kendrick Perkins and a few other people come after James Harden for the way he disrespected the game and getting out of Houston and all this stuff. And, it's a disrespect to the generation before him and all that. Didn't Magic Johnson get his coach fired too? Just thought that was, yeah.
He got his coach fired. Hold on. Magic got his coach fired, but what that got to do with Kyrie?
No, what I was saying, no. James Harden. So they basically painted
James Harden
being they painted it as him being disrespectful to the game by the way he got out of town. And I just don't think that's necessarily true. It's a superstar-driven game now. And, they dictate the culture of what happens in the league. They get to go where they want to go.
But didn't Harden do the same thing that Melo did? He did the same thing that others did?
No.
What was the difference?
Melo did not do that. Melo told them that he was not signing his extension, and that he wasn't going to sign the extension. So the best thing that they could possibly do is trade him to where he wants to go.
That's forcing his way out.
It's the same shit.
It's not
the same shit. Same thing Anthony Davis did. The same thing Chris Paul did.
Same thing. It's nothing new.
That's not the same thing. That's not the same thing. I am not signing my extension. I am in the last year of my contract. So you're going to lose me for nothing. James Harden is in the middle of a huge contract.
No, hold on, Banks. Let's not forget. James Harden turned down a 2-year, $50 million extension right before the season started. Right there, he let you know, bro, get me out of here. Think about that. 2 years, $50 million. He said no.
He's getting paid $40 a year now. So
he was getting the increase. He was getting.
Yeah, he would have got an increase.
They offered him an increase to keep him, and he said no.
He said no because I don't want to be here.
2 years, $50 million on top of what he's making already.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well,
he said no.
I mean, listen, I just look at it like so I'm Avery, real quick. I just look at it like people like to be like, yo, this current generation of players, they disrespecting the game by doing what they're doing. The man didn't want to be there anymore. He didn't like what was happening, and he was ready to go. I don't necessarily have a problem with it, but on the court,
that's different than Magic, though, because Magic didn't lead a team. Magic got the coach fired and stayed there, and actually did
but I just don't like this narrative that the older generation of players didn't do these kind of things too. Like they got coaches fired. They didn't have people that they didn't like on the team. It wasn't the level of player movement that they had now, though. It's just a different era. That's all it really is to it, to me.
Okay, all right, Avery, go ahead, because I'm kind of confused. But go ahead, Avery. Maybe you can clear it up.
Excuse me.
Well, I'm gonna clear one thing up. I've been on record. This generation of players is corny. How dudes can just say, "I'm going wherever I want to go." It's corny. I don't like it. But that's me being a guy that gets up every day, works 9 to 5. That's what that's about. That's me saying I can't tell my employer, yo, I don't like you no more. I'm going to work for another job. Keep my salary.
No, you actually can. You actually can.
Tell me how.
You can quit. You can quit.
You can quit, but you can't keep no salary in the process of quitting. Is what
listen, that's a whole different thing.
Okay. You can't be a hater because what you can't do, somebody else can do. That's being a hater.
No, that's me calling out this generation and saying,
no, but that's being a hater.
Lay out your contract. You know what I'm saying?
No.
Why? And you know how me and Mark feel about this.
No.
Oh, wait.
Players are not held to their contract.
Hold on, Mark.
I'm not in disagreement with the sentiment of people having control of their own destiny. That's not what I'm saying. I'm not in disagreement with saying, hey, listen, if you're unhappy somewhere, that's the leverage that this sports arena gives players. That's first and foremostly. I get it. At the end of the day, you know, I have the slave to the master mentality when it comes to sports as it is. So I understand. I just personally don't like, I'm going to play with Kevin Durant and Kyrie. I'm going to play with
Let's keep it a buck, Avery.
We gotta keep it a buck.
Just say it, Avery.
What?
He ain't end up in Philly.
Nah, that's not it. That's not it. Because I'm on record by saying I didn't really want him. I thought he was going to get traded to Philly. I didn't want Harden personally. I would have rather him not go to Brooklyn, but I didn't want him. So just to touch on the initial question, it's a nightmare as a Philly fan. It's a nightmare, G. Nobody's beating that team at full strength. I don't care who you put around them. You got 3 elite scorers. Nobody's beating that team. There's nobody beating that team in the East. I don't even know if you're going to beat that team in the West, but darn sure nobody beating that team in the East. I think it's great for Brooklyn. For Brooklyn, I think it's great. I think it's actually okay for the game. You know what I'm saying? Like, as what it looks like, I think it's okay for the game.
Agreed.
I think Mark, as a Knicks fan, is mortified that the Knicks are not the relevant team in New York anymore. That's just the reality. They're not the relevant team. And I do recall, I gotta give Leaf a little bit of credit. He said it a couple of years ago, Brooklyn was going to be the team in New York. So, listen, it's a nightmare. For me, it's a nightmare. I don't know how you're going to beat that team. I just don't know how you're going to beat them.
Well, when you say that, what I'm going to say is, as much as the Knicks is irrelevant,
Marcus Federer.
As much as the Knicks are irrelevant, so are the Sixers. Sixers just became irrelevant also. Just to let you know, just to add to it. Don't make it solo because Jersey's irrelevant, Philly's irrelevant. All right, but I think what I'm going to say is this: it's a great move for Brooklyn because of what it brings to Brooklyn. It is definitely a new era in Brooklyn now. And now that these 3 are there, you can only imagine what other moves that they could possibly make at the trade deadline to make this team even better. If they're smart, they can get even better. With the talent they lost, they can even add back talent at the trade deadline. So with that being said, but I just love how now Harden is the guy that goes to Brooklyn to me is a beautiful thing because all of the memes, the fat memes, and all those went away very quickly after the first 2 games. We're not seeing any more fat memes. Yo, he's putting up numbers.
You see, the vest is gone.
Yo,
the vest is gone.
Listen, he's putting up numbers. He's doing his thing. But the only thing that I'm going to ask, and I'm going to segue to it, and we'll probably go into a part 2. But how does Kyrie fit in this picture? Because when we seen a big 3, that third and fourth player had to take a back seat. When you looked at Bosh, you looked at Kevin Love, you looked at certain players in this situation. Is Kyrie going to be the number 2, or has he pushed to number 3 now? And how is that going to work out?
Definitely the third wheel. Kyrie is definitely the third wheel. What's going to nah, he's definitely in my opinion. What's more, because again, when you start talking about elite scorers, if you had to rank the 3, Kyrie's third all day. You know what I'm saying? And that's not a bad thing. You're comparing them to 2 top 5 players in the league. You know what I'm saying? But what's more interesting is, and they were talking about this last night, is who's going to run the point when all 3 of them are on the court?
Excuse me a sec. Harden said that last night after the game, he's working on his point guard skills. He said, yo, I got to get back to working on my point guard skills.
This is the crazy thing. And Mark, me and you talked about this on the panel. Like, people forget James Harden averaged 9 assists playing with nobodies, bro. So the question of who's going to run the point to me is insane. You put the ball in James Harden's hand. You just hope he doesn't turn it over. When the game is on the line, if I am Steve Nash, I'm taking the ball out of James Harden's hand, and then I'll give the ball to KD. But throughout that, give James Harden the ball, everybody fill the lanes and go. Like Avery just said, you got 3 elite scorers. Fill the lanes and run. This will be easy baskets, especially for dudes like Jeff Green, Shannon. These dudes should get easy baskets in transition. All you got to, Harris. And you've seen how Harris already, his scoring has went up. He's shooting the ball more efficient. All you got to do is run. The game is going to be easier. Banks touched on it earlier. Their biggest problem right now will be defense. And we also seen they are able to, in certain situations, really play defense and get stops like they did last night. So there should be no question who's gonna run the point guard. Who's gonna be their point guard.
Banks, go ahead, man. Because Banks, you were shaking your head.
Ideally, I think the best situation what you're gonna see is if it's basically like an amoeba thing. Like whoever's cooking that night is taking over. As long as everybody's kind of willing to put their ego aside for that moment, they should be fine. It should be like, listen, Kyrie's hot. We going with Kyrie right now. James is hot. We going with James right now. Kevin Durant is always hot. We going with Kevin right now. If they willing to do that, and if they willing to like not really be centered on like, oh, I'm the point guard, I'm the person that has the ball in my hands at the critical time, they should be fine. To me, it really boils down to the fact that it can go extremely well or it can go horribly bad.
Banks, can I push back on that just a little bit?
That's like marriage though, Banks.
Let me oh shit. Let me push back on that a little bit. I think that formula, Banks, what you said, who's cooking, that works in the regular season.
Not in the playoffs.
I don't know if that works in the playoffs because things seem to shrink. So it's going to be real interesting. Again, Kyrie is an elite scorer, but compared to Harden, I don't even think Kyrie possesses the point guard skills that Harden possesses. I'm sorry.
Here's the crazy thing, though. In the fourth quarter, the top 3 scorers are those 3 guys so far this year.
And they're going to have to pick and choose who is going to be the fourth quarter guy. And that's going to be an interesting part. But listen, hold on. We're going to come right back. Hold it, Banks. We're going to come right back. 2 points that I want to throw out there. Is Nash the coach to coach these guys, number 1? And number 2, we've seen Bosh numbers went from 24-point scorer. Kevin Love was a 25-point scorer. When they became the third wheel, they were 17 and 18-point scorers.
Let's talk about it.
Let's talk about it. We'll be right back, y'all. This is our take. Peace.